On July 16, 1943, we had to break through the German defense at the Kursk Bulge. Before the attack, we were given a command to keep together, not to lag behind and not to move forward, to keep an interval between tanks of 20 to 25 meters. We went forward, looking through the periscope, determining by the flashes of shots where their guns were. I managed to make a few shots at the firing points, and suddenly a blow on our tank, so that it spun on the spot. The caterpillar was smashed, and the tank stalled. I was looking through the periscope, trying to determine where the enemy was in order to shoot at him, and at that time lightning flashed in front of my eyes, something like electric welding. Then it became clear that the German had hit us with a bolt and penetrated the turret. I have to jump out of the tank, and it is not so easy. I am in the tank above everyone, the tank is cramped, there is no extra space, and there is a mechanic sitting under me. I want to pick him up, but my hands are not obeying, and fire is rising from below. I act more like a machine than I realize what I am doing. The pull from downstairs is getting stronger. So someone has already gone out through the lower escape hatch. I don't remember how I opened the upper one. I only remember how the flames hit my face and cut my eyes. Good thing I was wearing a helmet, otherwise my hair would have caught fire. I crawled out, rolled on the wing and hurried to the ground. I already had experience, because the fourth time I had to jump out of the tank. The German did not have time to pass on us from the machine gun, and I hid behind the tank. I saw the mechanic driver and the loader lying next to me. I shouted to them, "Save the commander! Go through the bottom hatch, where there is less fire. Hurry up, damn it, or the guy will burn." The loader crawled, his head couldn't be raised, there was rumbling around, bullets and shrapnel whistling. At that time the mechanic grabbed me and dragged me away from the tank. And I told him to leave me, save the tank, put out the flames with fire extinguishers. Now we'll start exploding shells. Soon the commander was pulled out. His overalls had decayed and fallen apart, his t-shirt had also decayed. In summer we wore only overalls in the tank, because it was very hot. We kept our overalls in our duffel bags. So his overalls fell apart, and his scorched body was exposed. The skin was cracked and blood oozed from the furrows. He's still alive. He begs for a drink. We gave him a flask, he begs for more. There's no more. No medics in sight. The infantry had already passed. And then I finally saw that my hands were hanging on scraps of skin. Blood was pouring from the wounds. The mechanic tied my wrists with gauze from a personalized bag. And his face was whiter than paper. With trembling hands he took a notebook out of his pocket, found a razor in it, and used it to cut the hands of both my hands. First he laid them side by side, then he buried them in the ground with a small shovel. And I can't yet fully realize that all this is happening to me. I am more concerned about something else. We have to save the tank. I thought I'd still be fighting on it. My comrades went to put out the flames in the tank, and I crawled. We were very close to the railroad, so there must be a ditch where you can take cover. The fight continues. The enemy fires all burst bullets. The field is overgrown with weeds. A bullet will hit a stalk, burst, and hit me with splinters. I crawl, pushing with my heels. I see a huge crater from an airplane bomb very close to me, and there are medics in it. They bandaged me up, tightened me up tightly, and quickly issued some paperwork, and moved on. I stayed in the funnel. Then I saw 2 more people with broken legs being dragged to me. The sanitation girl turns to me, but I can't understand what she wants from me. And the girl is begging, "There are wounded. We have to go back. You've got legs. Get up. These guys will lean on you, and maybe you'll get there somehow." So I got up. These wounded men hold on to my neck, I'm in the middle of them. They're holding on to me, I'm holding on to them a little bit. That's the way we go. 3 of us with 4 legs and 4 arms. We barely made it to the medical station. Here we were given water, bandaged, but the blood kept oozing out, soaking through the gauze. At the infirmary they made a medical card, wrote down who rendered first aid. By the middle of the day I got to the regimental ambulance standing at the edge of the forest. From here in the morning we went into the attack. It probably took us about 20 or 30 minutes to cover this distance. And I walked back for half a day. Here I was met by the deputy commander of the regiment on political part. He knew me as a part of the company. He looked at my hands, his eyes rounded and his face became so sad. I asked him, "Give me some vodka." I've heard it helps in such cases. It relieves pain and tension. Kolsov, without saying a word, takes the tank. We had such flat, long tanks in our tanks, 5 liters of vodka. It was a weekly norm for the crew. The lid was so wide, you turn the tank upside down, and it poured in just 150 grams. So, Kolsov turns the lid upside down and gives it to me. I drink it, and don't feel that it's vodka at all. Well, no strength, no smell. I ask for more. The lieutenant colonel pours. Then I remember how the captain started to feed me. He spooned a few spoonfuls of soup into my mouth, then the second one. I remember fried sausage with vermicelli. I still can't understand why some little thing stuck in my head, vermicelli sausage. Then they took me to the ambulance and lifted me up. There I huddled among the wounded and as if fell somewhere. The road to the hospital. I woke up from pain in some transit point. I was sitting on a chair, my overalls were cut and I was being bandaged. There is a conveyor belt, there is no time to soak dried bandages. As they pull me, sparks from my eyes and streams of blood from the wound. Through the fog in my head I hear the clanking of medical instruments, the smell of medicines, moans and curses of the wounded. Many are delirious, still in the attack, modeling the fascist. I have one thought in my head. In the back pocket of my overalls I have my documents, my party card. I wish I hadn't lost them. Somewhere they can take off the overalls and throw them away. I asked them to tie the documents with gauze and hang them around my neck. Again I was taken by a flatbed car on dusty country roads. Again I fell into the void and regained consciousness. And now I found myself in some collective farm shed. The wounded are stacked in rows with logs, and an ancient old woman, or a small child, sits near each of them. She sits and waves twigs, driving away flies from the festering wounds. A huge barn and silence. The wounded are so weak that they moan quietly. Only the buzzing of flies and the rustling of leaves can be heard. I see a very small girl squatting near me. She must be about 5 to 6 years old, no more than that. She was diligently waving a twig, chasing flies away from her hands and face. And my face turned out to be completely burned, covered with watery blisters. My left eye was completely closed, and I could only see through a narrow slit in my right eye. I see that the girl has tears rolling down her cheeks. She's crying silently. She's waving and crying. And then I got a kind of a twinge in me. I felt sorry for myself. My chest tightened, it was hard to breathe. I feel like crying, but there are no tears. And the girl is waving even more diligently, sniffing her nose, looking around, like she wants to ask someone for help. Then I scolded myself mentally. A small child near me is trying so hard, maybe her father was killed in the war, but I'm still alive. Then I remembered the nurse from the front line. "You have legs," she told me. "People can lean on you." Those words seemed offensive to me then, but now they have a different meaning. Yes, I still have legs. I can still walk on the ground. And how many people are worse off than I am? "Don't cry, daughter," I said to the girl, "soon the war will be over, and you will go to school." And I thought of one more thing. How much strength and kindness there is in our people. The enemy passed through here, burned everything to the ground, hanged our people, forced women to carry multi-ton rails on their backs. But it did not break the will to live, did not destroy kindness and the desire for freedom. Both old and young are trying for the sake of victory over the enemy. Those who can work are probably in the fields now, and these have come to us, helpless soldiers. I thought so, and from these thoughts I felt better at heart. But thoughts are thoughts, but there are no hands. As soon as I take my mind off them, it seems as if my fingers hurt, I want to move them. And my eyes stop seeing. My face is covered with crust, it hurts even to open my mouth, the skin bursts. It's hard to say what kind of face he'll have even if he's cured. It's not enough to be an armless freak, but what if you become a scarecrow on top of that? Your own children will be frightened. Who needs me like this? I'm a burden and a burden to everyone. I can't eat or drink by myself. Well, that's alright, they can still feed you, but what about the other one? I can't unbutton or zip up, wherever I go, I can't do anything alone. What kind of life is that? In general, I was bored to death. Days passed. I was transported from one hospital to another. First I was treated in Tula, then in Ivanova. I stayed there for quite a long time. Then I was taken in an ambulance train to eastern Siberia. On August 11th the train arrived in Irkutsk. That's how the evacuation went for almost a month after the wounding. At the same time they made bandages, operated. Several times I was under anesthesia. At first my face was treated for burns. Some of it started to heal. I feel a nice tickle. It's small, but it's a joy. Gradually, one eye started to open, then the other. I can see. I've lost a little bit of vision. But the main thing is that I can see. In Irkutsk I had another operation, another splinter was taken out of my arm. It turns out that I was wounded not by a shell, but by shards of my own tank armor. I was asked to write home, but I couldn't write myself, my hands were wounded. I'm afraid to admit that they are completely gone. I went to the attack, I was not timid, but now I'm afraid. I realize that nothing will change, my hands won't grow back, but I can't say it at once, even if I kill myself. I was in the hospital for more than 6 months. Operation after operation after operation. I'm on the mend. Anyway, it was time to go home. The deputy head of the hospital writes a letter home to his wife and parents. So, do you agree to accept your son and husband without arms, a disabled veteran of World War I group? Without the written consent of the family was not sent home. And here I lie again and think at night, how will they answer? Children are small, they probably need such a father. Parents. They will also accept, but they are already old people. How long will they last? I can't live alone now. What about my wife? Will she accept me? Such a freak. Of course, I can stay in the care of the state. I'll live in some home for the disabled, the nurses will always be there. The state is kind, it won't let its protector get hurt. And the children? What will it be like for them? Whether you lie in bed, whether you walk the corridors of the hospital in your head thoughts one bitterer than the other. Finally, a letter arrives. They let me read it, and for the first time in these many months I cried. You know, both joyful and ashamed. How could I doubt my wife? How could I think such a thing? She's waiting for me, no matter how I am, whether I have no arms or legs, the main thing is that I'm alive. She says so in her letter, the main thing is that I'm alive. I went home accompanied by my sister Nadia. I was still waiting for my turn. She was taking our brother from Irkutsk all over the Union. We're traveling by train. I'm both happy and worried. So worried that I lost my appetite. Nadia is buying my food coupons at different stations, and I'm eating something, but the food doesn't go. I would fly ahead of the train. On January 24th, 1944 I was walking down the street to my house, my legs were braided. I saw my Zenaida running towards me. She stumbled. She fell to my breast, burst into tears and kissed my pink koltishki, said something, wailed and kissed, leaned against them with her cheeks. My children are running, my mother and father. The neighbors have gathered. And I felt dizzy and weak. Nadenka stayed with us for a few days, looking around to see if I'd be all right. Then she asked me to take her to the village council. There she drew up the documents and handed me over to the village council under a receipt stamped by the seal of the Soviet authorities. Everything was honorable. I rested for a few days in my village. Women came and asked me if I had seen my husband or son at the front. They sat near me, cried and left. I look at life. There is devastation, hunger, longing in people's eyes. What to do? I can't go to school anymore. I have to write on the blackboard, teach children to spell. So I decided to retrain myself. I got some books, created a brigade of old ladies, and started vegetable growing in the collective farm. The brigade turned out to be not bad, we were praised. Then I was elected deputy chairman of the collective farm and party leader. Our party organization was territorial, uniting several villages. There were no communists in the collective farm. Then the frontline soldiers began to arrive, and we created our own collective farm party organization. At night I learned to write. I wasn't lucky, I still had my elbow joints. Zenaida would tie a pencil to the stump of her arm, and I would try to scribble. 7 sweats were pouring down my throat to get out 1 or 2 words. Gradually I started to get something. Then they gave me a hand. It's called a galvanic brush with metal stiffness. I studied again. Now things went faster. I regret one thing: I didn't kill enough fascists. I didn't seem to have accomplished any special feat, though I have orders and medals.